Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome back to Send Searchlights. Not sure where you are all in the world, but it's a very dark morning here in the UK. We were just checking we've got the time right this morning because it was still so dark. It's always lovely to hear where you're from. So if you want to put in the chat a quick hello and where you're from, it's lovely to see where we've got people joining from. So we'll just give it couple more minutes just to allow people to join. Welcome, Joanna from Egypt. Thank you for joining us. Soggy Oswestry, yeah, quite agree. Great, lovely to see so many people from across the world this morning. So we will get started. This session is slightly different. So we've been doing some analysis and reviewed our engagement from across the library of sessions that we've had so far to just understand those sessions that have had the greatest attendance so that we can continue to meet your needs. This is for you. So we just wanted to make sure that actually we were giving you what you were looking for. So our expert-led sessions, such as last month with Becky Hawes, are really popular. But interestingly, our most viewed session to date was when we explored how to help you maximise your data with the help of one of our experienced education advisors, such as myself and Debbie. That's our role within Renaissance as well. And we had a really positive response to this when we posed a poll question as to whether it would be helpful to investigate some anonymised data. So therefore, our session today is a practical session where we will look at some data and suggest some next steps and questions that you might ask about the learners, as well as some further next steps as well. So let's get started for today. I don't know if Debbie is having some technical issues, so I will carry on and hope that she gets those issues resolved. Are you there, Debbie?
I'm here now. Sorry, I just had a problem with Zoom. It threw me out for some reason. So I do apologise. So thank you, Polly. So we appreciate that there will be a whole breadth of familiarity with our assessments amongst you today. Some of you might use one of our assessments. Some of you may use a package, and some of you may not use any at all. However, our aim by the end of the session is to equip you with the data analysis skills and tools to help you get the most out of your data and use it in the most practical way to support your learners. We understand that today's session may be more product-led than we would usually, and that not everybody may be using the specific products, or you may only be using some of them. Our goal is to demonstrate how the same style of data analysis can be applied and can work with tools that you are already using. I'll pass you back over to Polly.
Perfect. Thank you, Debbie. So I'm just going to share my screen this morning. So we're going to imagine that this is a data set for some learners in your school. So when we talk about universal data, that's your core data. And as Debbie said, that may be something you're familiar with. So we have here the NGRT, which is our new Greek reading test. You may be using a different reading assessment. That's absolutely fine. It's just to give you that flavour of how you can pull data together. So here we're looking at NGRT, our reading data or attainment data. Next, we've got our CAT4 data, so cognitive abilities data. So general ability information. And again, you might be using something slightly different, a non-verbal reasoning test, verbal reasoning. But again, this is just to highlight the different sorts of data that you might be pulling together to get that really holistic view of a learner. We've also got our PASS data. So that's pupil attitudes to self and school survey. Again, this is Renaissance data here, so a GL assessment product. But again, you might have something within your toolbox in your schools that you're using to gather that information. And it's about how you're pulling that data together. So you might have one of these products, you might have all three, you might not have any, but it's about what data can you pull together. And then we've got our STAR assessments as well. So I'm going to be talking about the GL assessments, and then when we move on, Debbie will go through how you can use those STAR assessments as well. So hopefully covering a wide variety of different assessment products. So let's have a look at that data when we pull it all together. So using these assessment baselines will help you to determine any adjustments that you need to make for learners that may be working above average, so those who might need those opportunities for mastery or enrichment, or those who may be working below average and where there may be barriers. So I'm just going to talk you through the data, and this is something that both Debbie and I cover in our data consultations when we work with schools. So if you're thinking, oh, that would be really helpful, I'd love to go through that with my own data, then at the end of the session we will provide you links and details of how you can book on to a data consultation so that we can go through this with you. So we can see in our example here, we've got Ahmed, and so we're looking at the NGRT first, so that attainment data. And we can see that his standard age score is within that average range, and I've put the tables below so you can see what we're relating to. And his reading is generally balanced. We can see for the SC, so that's sentence completion and passage comprehension, and it's very balanced. There's no discrepancies there. But when we move across to the CAT4, we can see that some of the scores within that CAT4, so the ability assessment, is below average. So verbal is below average and quantitative is below average. So again, that starts giving us clues as to where those barriers may lie. So verbal, he's doing obviously very well in his reading, so maybe there's an intervention already in place that's really supporting Ahmed. It might also be that he may have English as additional language, so that verbal category, the battery in CAT4 may be lower. And then we can see that quantitative is low. So potentially he's experienced barriers in his maths. Quantitative battery is the most closely linked to maths. So again, you can start to build that picture. And then we look across to pass. Now, pass is quite complex. There's lots of different factors, and I have put the different factors there for you to relate to. But as a really general, easy rule, wherever it's red, that's not so positive. Wherever it's green, very positive. And where you've got yellow and orange, that's sort of in the middle. So we can see for Ahmed, actually, he's not feeling very confident about himself as a learner. His perceived learning capability is low, and his self-regard as a learner is low, and he doesn't feel prepared for his learning. So again, that might be something that we start to address first. Let's go for the well-being and then see how that then impacts his learning across the board. Then we go and come to Dina, and we can see straight away across the board that generally for attainment and ability, she's average and above average. We can see for Dina, her NGRT, she's got a discrepancy. She's above average in one area in her vocabulary and average in passage comprehension. And sometimes it can be really easy to overlook those students who are showing that high ability or average ability, because actually further down the line, there may be barriers. And again, when we look across at her past data, we can see there's some yellows and oranges. So actually, again, let's focus on that well-being and making sure that she's feeling confident as a learner so she doesn't begin to slip as she moves through school. Mia, very similar. You would make sure that there's lots of stretch and challenge going on there. A very able learner, but again, looking at that past data, that's not reflecting, that's not quite matching up. We think you'd see lots of greens, that she'd be really confident in her learning and feeling confident about school and feeling positive about school. And we're not seeing that from past. So again, what's going on there? Let's make sure that she's not slipping down as she progresses through school. And then we come to Suhail, who's similar to Ahmed. You'd want to monitor the reading there. We can see for reading attainment, just within that average range, so just on the cusp with a score of 89 and some below average areas. And again, does Suhail need intervention? Is EAL a barrier? Do they need more opportunities for language acquisition? So we can start to pull information through about where we need to pinpoint intervention and putting things all together. So triangulating that data to really identify where a learner is struggling. And this is where the power of assessment really comes in. So as Debbie and I both said already, if you're not using these specific assessments, you could still put the data together. If you've got a reading assessment, a maths assessment, ability assessment, and a wellbeing assessment, pull all that data through so that you can see where those barriers are and actually what might be causing a barrier. Actually, is it they don't feel confident as a learner and therefore that's having a knock-on effect, or do they have a specific learning difficulty that is that barrier to learning? So that's been a whistle-stop tour through our data analysis and how we might pull that data together. I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and I will pass over to Debbie, who's going to just guide us through the other products, so our STAR assessments, to see how you can use those to identify areas of need as well.
Thank you, Polly. I'm just going to share my screen now. And as we can see here, we've got the Renaissance STAR Early Literacy and Renaissance STAR assessments. So STAR Early Literacy measures proficiency in early literacy skills, and the STAR assessments include STAR Reading and STAR Maths. STAR Early Literacy is designed for emergent readers, and it's appropriate for learners who, based on STAR Reading, have a reading age below 7 years and 1 month. And STAR Reading is intended for students who have a sight word vocabulary of at least 100 words. STAR Maths is designed for students from year 2 right through to year 11. And we can see here we've got the bell curve, and this may be very similar if you're not using STAR assessments. If you're using a different product, your bell curve may be very similar. For example, NGRT, whereas we use benchmark categories, as you can see on here, NGRT uses stay-nines, but the actual bell curve is very similar. So red, as we can see there, means that the student needs urgent intervention. Yellow shows that they do require intervention. Blue is classed as on watch, so we're just keeping an eye on them because we don't want them to fall into intervention. And the light green is pupils who are working at benchmark, which is a proficiency norm. The dark green are pupils who are working above benchmark and they're working at greater depth. This supports planning at scale and provides a benchmark. So we can see here we've got the screening report. This supports planning at scale and provides a powerful snapshot of student performance, indicating how each learner is placed relative to national benchmarks. The report helps to identify who needs targeted intervention and support and who requires specific intervention. And as we can see here, it shows us with the colour codes for the benchmarks who requires intervention and who requires urgent intervention there. And we can then go on and we can look at these students in more detail, which brings us on to the STAR Instructional Planning Report. This identifies skills the students most urgently need within the learning progression to enable them to move forward in their learning. They are known as focus skills and are represented with a lightning bolt icon, as you can see here. Move forward. As you can see, the lightning bolt icon on the side next to the year level that the pupils need to learn those skills in. Focus skills indicate the building blocks of student learning and are critical, impactful, and standards-based. This data indicates, if we have a look at Lara Coyle, this indicates that she has a reading age of 6 years and 1 month. This is below the 701 reading age, which indicates that they could be a potential candidate for our STAR Early Literacy intervention. Star Early Literacy looks at 10 domains, and you can see they are listed there, 41 skill sets and 145 skills. And if we move on to this side, we can see that the left-hand report shows the overview of literacy classifications within a class. And you can see it gives them a scaled score, and it also tells you whether they are an early emergent reader, a late emergent reader, an early transitional reader, a late transitional reader, or a probable reader. When they get to probable reader, they are ready to move on to star reading. And we can see here we've got an individual report for Lara Coyle, and it tells us which skills she needs to work on to actually make progress. So you've got all the domains listed and then the skills within them, and you can see that the skills she needs to work on have little arrows next to them to indicate that they are her next steps. So if she scores above 75, she's mastered that skill. If she scores between 40 and 75, there will be a little arrow next to the skill to say that that's the next steps. And if she has scored below 40, she's not ready to learn that skill yet. So we would indicate that you choose 3 or 4 of her highest scoring next steps and work on those with her. Before I pass back to Polly, this can also be an indicator that you may want to use some of our SEND portfolio products as well, if it's an older pupil who are scoring quite low and need Star Early Literacy. Before I pass over to Polly, we're going to launch a quick poll, just in case you'd like to find out more about any of the assessment products that we have mentioned today. Thank you.
Sorry, I just realised I'm on mute. So I was just saying we'll just give people a couple of minutes to fill in the poll. So hopefully people have filled that in. It's been a whistle-stop tour through data this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are. If you do engage with one of our data consultations, it's a lot slower paced than that. We do take our time to go through the data with you. It takes between 30 minutes up to an hour. So please don't feel that it would be as rushed if we did this with you on a one-to-one basis. But following on from that very speedy tour, just some suggestions for you to think about and take away to use in your own setting. So whatever data you have, whatever products you're using, what are you noticing about the data? Are there any surprises? How can you put that data into context? So thinking about what the numbers on the page, but also what's going on for that child in the background. Have they missed education at some point? Is there something going on with the family? All sorts of different reasons that might be affecting their output in the data as well. And what questions have you generated from that data? So sometimes the data can produce more questions than answers, but actually that's something that you can explore. Another question that schools do ask us a lot is the what next? So you've got your data and then what do you do with it? So I'm just going to pop a link into the chat for our SEND guide, which then gives you an opportunity to sort and filter areas of need once they've been identified. And that will guide you to possible other assessment products, other next steps. So that can be quite helpful once you've got the data and the what next. And I'm also going to pop a link into our for our data consultations as well. So there is a direct link for GL assessments. So I'll pop that in now. And there's also an email address for Renaissance products. So if you're making use of STAR assessments, and you'd like to talk through those in more details, I'll pop the email address in there. Just ahead of next month, we'd like our next session to be really driven by you, the attendees. So if you have a particular question that you would like answered on SEND, I won't try and feed you the questions. If you've got something that's really burning, or you think actually a webinar on this topic would be really helpful, we'd be really grateful if you could drop those questions into the Q&A box. So I know that lots of you are using the chat box. There's been some great questions in there today, but if you'd use the Q&A box to pose those questions, and then Debbie and I can have a look at those over the next month, ready for our next session, so that we can answer those questions and hopefully really provide the information that you as our attendees and watchers are really interested in and would like to know more about. So please do drop those into the Q&A. I will check the chat again and pass over to Debbie.
Thank you, Polly. So thank you all very much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again on the 13th of January, when, as Polly mentioned, we will be answering questions from the audience. And we'd like to just say very best wishes to everyone who will be celebrating the holidays, and we look forward to seeing you again in the new year.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great holiday.
Bye.